Alright, so this will be the fourth and last video in our introductory series looking at how to do maths with Google Sheets. This particular video is going to look at how to use sine, cos and tan functions in Google Sheets. So what we're going to do here, to give you an example of how to do this, is I'm just going to do a spreadsheet that will calculate the sine, cos and tan for angles of 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 90 degrees. So the first thing I'm going to have to do, type in that, and then from there we're going to fill that down all the way to 90 degrees. There we go. Okay, so how do I then calculate the sine of an angle? Well, it's pretty easy except for a little trick that we have to be aware of. So we type in equals, so Google Sheets knows there's a formula coming. We type in SIN for the sine. And then if we look at what Google Sheets is doing here, we've got sine. It says sine of an angle provided in radians. And that's the little trick. So for some reason, probably because Excel was first used for like science and engineering and stuff like that, and these radians are what we use in science and engineering, but for some reason they want the angle not in degrees, which is what we use in everyday life, but they want the angle when they're calculating the sine to be in an alternative unit for angles called radians. Now, you don't need to know anything about that for now. I'm pretty sure you won't encounter that until math methods, maybe even specialist maths next year if you take that. But you do need to know that the spreadsheet expects the angle to be in radians when it calculates a sine or a cos or a tan. And if it's not, like we have here, our angles are in regular old degrees, then you're going to get the wrong answer. So what we have to do is do a little bracket, and before we calculate the sine, we're going to have to convert our angle that's in degrees into radians so it makes sense to the sine function in Google Sheets. So it's just a matter of typing in the word radians, and as I do that, it says radians converts an angle value in degrees to radians. So I double click on that, and then I'm going to click on the cell where my angle in degrees is. And then from there, the last thing I do is close off the brackets. And if we look at what we've got here, we've got the sine, but then before we do the sine, we use the radians function to convert our angle in degrees into radians, and then Google Sheets will find the sine of that and put the answer there. And then from there, autofill, and that looks pretty good. So now I've calculated the sine for each of those angles. Now I can do the same thing for the cosine. So it's equals COS for cosine. Double click on that, or click on that once. Then we need to convert the angle into radians like we did last time. So we type that in, and then that's good. And then we do exactly the same thing for tan. So for each of these, sine, cos, and tan, you'll have to convert your angle, if it's in degrees, into radians first before you can use the sine, cos, or tan functions. And there we go. So now we have the angle from 0 to 90 degrees, and we have the sine, cos, and tan values for each of those angles. All right, I thought I would make that my last video because that little trick where you have to convert your angle from degrees into radians before you can use sine, cos, and tan is something that tends to trip up students the first time they have to use it. So that'll be my last video. There are other functions that we use in Google Sheets or Excel, like finding the sum or the average of numbers or finding the square root of numbers, but that's pretty straightforward. You can work it out for yourself just by Googling, how do I do a square root in Google Sheets, or how do I do a square root in Excel or something, all right? So that doesn't require a tutorial video. Okay, so now you've got all the stuff you need in order to actually start doing your maths investigation. So get into it.